It's a common misconception that if you want to lose some unwanted fluff, that you have to eat 1200 calories every day, which looks like chicken breast, broccoli, and rice. Not only is that completely false, but I'll also offer you another approach that doesn't sacrifice your will to live. In this video, you'll learn how to integrate your favorite foods into your diet, why banning foods such as chocolate is the reason you're struggling to lose weight, and a tool that will completely reframe the way you see this process forever. The thought of enjoying a chocolate bar and losing some unwanted timber probably sounds alien and also a bit silly. I used to also have that same belief, and this was my attitude when I was boxing.
This will be gone. I'm only limited to one junk food a week. Just give it Friday, and that's it.
It actually worked, like really fucking well. Banning any sort of ultra processed food and being very restrictive. On paper, I should have been happy. It meant I got to fight, and I was the leanest I had ever been. But it came at the cost of my mental health. Some weeks prior to the fight, I would spend most of my days eating some fruit, protein bar, and my dinner, whatever was cooked. Many people focus on the outcome but don't consider the journey that takes place to get there, which brings me to my next point. I can't show you how to fit this into your diet until we understand why removing them in the first place is such a bad idea. Ever since the dawn of time, humans have suffered with the scarcity problem, which means a limited amount of a resource. For example, this could be number of mates, shelter, food, water, whatever it might be, the things that are essential for us to survive. We are naturally programmed and have evolved to solve this problem. We went from hunting our food to growing it to now manufacturing it, and now food, generally speaking, is accessible worldwide. However, with this new production of food, some things have come into the food chain which never existed before. And this has been deliberately designed for you to overconsume it, so businesses make more money. It's fucking delicious, it's a bit like a mouthgasm, and the textures and the flavorings and the fat all just make that experience so much more rewarding. But that's not inherently a bad thing, it's just important to have the awareness of that. So when you over-restrict this piece of chocolate, it suddenly becomes a lot more valuable because it's now scarce, it's no longer within abundance, and it makes this way more desirable. The more you shun this craving, the bigger it grows and you just want to swim in a mountain of chocolate. But to be fair, who doesn't want to fucking go to Charlie Chocolate Factory bloke and swim in his like pool thing of chocolate? That would be absolutely unreal. To use a simple analogy too, 10,000 years ago, our ancestors would have had to avoid lions so they didn't die. So by default, you have to constantly think of lions, what they look like, what they smell like, are they perhaps preying upon you? So you know exactly what to avoid. If you apply this same logic to any food that you ban, having this belief and telling yourself you're not allowed it, suddenly when you're in proximity of it, that food is going to be constantly on your mind, so your brain knows what to avoid. Many studies also support how over-restrictive meal plans and diet and approaches are fucking terrible for adherence and sustainability of weight loss and weight maintenance. So now that you know restricting it is probably a terrible idea, I can now show you how to fit this into your day-to-day diet. You have a certain amount of calories you need to consume each day to just maintain your weight, and if you want to lose body fat, you have to go into a calorie deficit. As long as they hit that target, they will lose body fat despite what they eat. And of course, there's other factors outside of this, such as protein intake, which can influence what weight you specifically lose, whether that's like muscle mass or fat mass. However, what matters for fat loss is a calorie fucking deficit. I would recommend consuming foods that rot within a week because of health. You can start thinking of your calories like a bank balance. You have a particular budget that you can spend within a day, and ideally you don't want to go above it because again, you'll go into overdraft. And then you also want to make sure that you use that budget so you actually have a fun experience on a night out. But say you don't want a fucking chocolate bar, you want a pizza with like a bit of Ben & Jerry's on the side or whatever it might be, there is thankfully another approach that can also help you. We can start forward thinking and backwards planning. So say, for example, you have 2,000 calories for the day. You can deduct perhaps say 1,300 calories off of that to compensate for that Domino's and a bit of ice cream on the side. However, that only leaves you with 700 calories throughout the day to obviously hit your protein intake and make sure you're satisfied. When I refer to 2,000 calories being your deficit calories, that means your daily calorie deficit. So if you times this by 7, that gives you your weekly calorie deficit. You can allocate your calories however you like throughout the week and you'll still drop body fat. So we can take 200 calories off of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, which gives us an additional 1,000 calories to play with perhaps for the Saturday or Sunday. So you would eat 1,800 calories between Monday to Friday. Then you can either distribute the extra 1,000 calories between Saturday and Sunday, meaning you have 2,500 calories to eat, or you would just have 3,000 on one particular day. And again, you would still lose weight. The scale weight might say something different, but again, that's for another video. But you're still within a weekly calorie deficit and you would still drop body fat. What I really want to encourage is that you forward think and backwards plan. That is going to be how you can integrate these favorite foods into your diet whilst not sacrificing the will to live. On that note, I think this has to be probably the most important part of the video. I want you to develop an abundance mindset. I want you to have the genuine belief that if you want that chocolate bar, go have that chocolate bar. You know what? Fuck it. You could have McDonald's, KFC if you really fancied. You could go down Tesco's, go get a massive Pringles, and as a fitness coach, You probably think I'm a bit of a nutter. However, you're an adult. You can make fully informed choices, and this is why I'm here to equip you with the knowledge of the pros and cons of certain choices. For example, if 80% of your diet was super ultra processed food and a bunch of takeout foods, you might experience hunger cravings, you might have low energy because of the lack of nutrients. And then on the other end, you could make up most of your food days eating whole foods and single ingredient foods and getting your protein intake. And again, like being aware of the pros and cons of that as well. But by giving yourself permission to eat what you want, whenever the fuck you want, will remove a large portion of these cravings, because if you understand that most of them come from over restriction. But you have to genuinely believe this. And despite multiple studies suggesting that calorie deficit is king, and me telling you that a calorie deficit is mainly what matters for fat loss, you have to build that belief for yourself. You do that by generating evidence that this process works. So now I encourage you to start forward thinking and backwards planning in terms of how you're going to fit foods into your diet, whether you perhaps want to take up for the weekend or you're just completely content with perhaps a dairy milk bar each day. And you do this for 2 to 3 weeks, and you can look at sort of the scale weight, or you can see how your clothes are fitting. There's so many different ways you can measure progress. But if there's one thing I really want to drill home in this video, is developing an abundance mindset and being able to assess the pros and cons of different situations and of your choices. Because developing this rational way of thinking is going to remove so much of the emotional charge or feeling guilty and shameful just because you've had a fucking donut. Because you now understand consuming that donut not only means you have more carbohydrates, which will fuel your workouts, you get that mental satisfaction, so the craving goes away. However, the disadvantages is that temporarily for a day, you might not be within a calorie deficit, or you might feel a bit ugh afterwards because it's really oily. But by developing this habitual way of thinking of having an abundance mindset and genuinely believing I can have whatever I want, whenever I want, that has got to be one of the most powerful things you can learn for 2025 and having a successful year with your fat loss. I'm deadly serious about that. That is all from me today, and YouTube is quite smart in terms of putting a video there. I believe I ate Domino's for 30 days straight and lost 6 kg, so if you want to see how I did that, just click this.